Okay, welcome everybody. I'm sorry, but I missed the start of the ride. So what's happening now is I'm going to do some commentary. I'm going to catch up with the group in a minute and do commentary on the ride. And I'll get the riders coming to the finish and I'll do some commentary as they're going along the road. But I'm not actually going to be riding the event myself. What I have to do is get on the bike, turn the pedals in order to become a member of the ride. So I'll do that now. Just waiting for my cadence to show, which it's now showing. Took quite a while. So there I am on the course. I'll now continue to let's see if we can turn on and see what's happening. Let's see if we can get to the front of the ride. And it looks like Mr. Lux has got a 200-meter gap on the rest of the group. So what I'm going to do now is just work my way back and show you what's happening with the ride. So you can see this fellow has a clear gap. Nobody following him at the moment. He's 180 meters out on the front, but he's just approaching the first of the big climbs. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can keep this break going. In fact, he can't, because you can see the distance is coming down and the riders behind him are just appearing on the horizon. So they're going to come back to him. As I say, you can see the riders behind closing now. Having said that, one of them is doing 8.4 watt kilo, which yeah, and it's not changing. Which looks a bit iffy. Yeah, just I think he needs to configure his system. Not calling it out, but that does look a bit iffy. He's keeping that high wattage for far too long. So let's have a look at him. Mr. Lee. And looking at his heart rate, I would say that this is a misconfigured power meter or trainer, because look at the watt kilos. It's just, yeah, this is a little bit ridiculous. So I'm going to go back to the man behind, and we'll watch the riders come up to this rider, and then what we're gonna do is, once I get myself settled, I've had PC issues, and at the moment I'm rebuilding my studio to try and improve the broadcasts, making quite a few changes, and that invariably involves plugging and unplugging different bits of hardware, and I just couldn't get it fixed in time for today's ride. I should really have waited until after the weekend to mess about a bit, but I've been trying most of the weekend to reconfigure, and it just went ape. I couldn't get it configured in time to get into this, and I'm really upset, because I really wanted to ride today's course. It's the kind of profile which would really suit me. You know, short, sharp climbs and a rolling profile is my cup of tea. But anyway, that being what it is, we're in with the ride now. So let's have a look back in the field and see what's happening. The riders have currently done about 17 kilometres, so, and you can see that the terrain has well and truly broken them up. I imagine there will be a group riding together somewhere. Let's see if we can find them. Yeah, these three are together, but we're at the point where the riders are on the first of the really steep climbs. You can see the 12% on screen. So it's no wonder that riders are all over the course. Absolutely no surprise to me at all, having covered the race yesterday. I mean, the racers managed to stay together because obviously they were making huge efforts to stay as a group and benefit from drafting, etc. Whereas today you've just got riders trying to do the best ride they can, and you'll have all sorts of different abilities in the sportive, whereas in the race, the front group, the front contenders, there wasn't much between them in the early part of the race. Now, this event is sponsored by Torm Cycle Clothing, and there he is. There's Paul Torm. It's a two-man outfit, and they produce what I consider to be some of the best merino wool cycle clothing I've certainly used. So there are our sponsors, and there he is giving the sportive a bash. Now, unlike the race, I don't get positioned, so I can't tell you where they are on the ride. All I can do is flick through, and we can follow the riders on the road and see what's happening. But it doesn't currently give me their numbers, so I can't tell you. Saying we have 28 riders online. Oh, it's nice to see Volo in the Team 3R kit. That looks nice, sir. And I've got a little bit of feedback, and I don't know why. Let's see if we can turn that. There we go. Let's see if we can turn that down. There may well be some bugs in the system today because, as I say, I couldn't get into the ride in time, and it's been all on just to get back up and running with the rest of the system and actually cover this race, which I'm a little bit I'm a little bit disappointed that this has happened. And Lee is, I mean, these are pro level figures he's putting out. So this is a misconfigured power meter or trainer, without a shadow of a doubt, because he's just putting out for too long. I mean, yes, you would expect somebody to be able to ride, to be able to push out high numbers, but he's been pushing out high numbers now for a good few minutes. I caught up with him 7 minutes ago, and he hasn't dropped below 5 watt kilos, and that's pro level watt kilo. So misconfigured. So we'll discount him for the time being and come back to him later. And then you've got, I think it's Nick Giles. He's a good rider. I'd expect Nick to be up there amongst the front runners. I mean, this is not a race, but, I know from riding sportives myself that sportives are unofficial races. The riders taking part in them are racing them, make no mistake. Certainly the ones at the front are, anyway. So you can see a nice little group is forming here. Let's zoom out and see if there's anybody else close. Yeah, there you go. There's a few more riders around them. So, if they can form into a nice small group at this stage and ride together for a while, that's certainly going to help, because this is a very, very tough course. with some steep uphills. I mean, there's a 25% section later in the ride, which I covered yesterday during the race, and I couldn't believe it when I saw the riders going up it. You can actually see the elevation on screen. I mean, somebody in the comments a few days ago on RGT users commented that they couldn't see the scenery showing the elevation. Well, it does. Just watch my feed today, and you can clearly see that the steepness of the climbs when I show them. And in fact, if we let's work our way slightly backwards, because people are still on the climb, so you will be able to see what I'm saying here. We'll catch up with the riders in more depth. I'm just going to go. Here we go. So this fellow is on the climb. Now from this view, maybe you can't see it, but if I turn it around, whoops, let's get it. Yeah, he's on. If I turn it around so that you can see the gradient in this shot. Okay, now this is only a 7, I'm saying only, that's steep enough. This is a 7% gradient. When you get to the 25% gradient, which I'll show you later in the ride, it's insane. It looks insane on screen, and it is insane. So and there you can see, you can clearly see the incline here that Dijablis is going up, and even more so here with the 10%. So for somebody to say that, RGT doesn't show the inclines, it does. You just need a computer that's capable of rendering the graphics sufficiently well enough to give you the scenery. And this is, I record and all my streams in ultra and 1080p. So this is HD quality that you're seeing on screen now. It's about as good as you can get with RGT. But I've put it together myself from a budget PC. I've built a top-end gaming system purely and simply by splashing out on a good graphics card. Your processor is not really important. It's all about how good your graphics card is. I've got 16 gigabytes of memory. If I up that to 32, I wouldn't see any difference in the quality. 16 is more than enough. So this is a budget PC with a 2070 Super graphics card stuck in it, and it will handle anything that Swift or RGT can throw at it, and it can stream in anything but 4K. And there's no point in streaming at 4K. You wouldn't, YouTubers aren't going to watch 4K videos. So 1080 is about as much as you need to do. And here you can see Paul Torm from Torm Cycle Clothing. Let's get with him. There he is. So it's nice to see him taking part in. He took part in last week's, and it's nice to see him taking part in these events himself. But it's even nicer to see the quality of the kit that they're producing. And there will be some freebies given away by Torm Cycle Clothing for the most aggressive or the best team riders or the most combative riders, and those prizes will be determined probably later on when I do the highlights programs, and Paul has a word with me. So let's find out what's happening further down and switch the view. I think it's just slightly to give us a, there we go. Probably isn't the best view with the trees, but the nice thing about this software, and I explained this yesterday in yesterday's feed with the racing, is the ability to be able to swing the cameras around to almost any viewpoint. So if I am obscured by the trees, I can find a better angle to show. You can see the riders through the trees catching Mooney, Valo and Claude. There they go. And these are the riders at the back of the ride. As I say, nice to see Volo wearing the Team Free Arcade. And there's one of the bots now. This is a bot Jan is riding at 2.4. And what happens with the bots or pace partners is they tend to stay at the same wattage, whether they're going uphill, downhill, on the flat or whatever. So that if you were wanting to pace yourself at a steady pace throughout a ride, you'd just get on the wheel of one of the bots and he'd pull you along at that pace. But obviously, sportive riders are going to be changing pace, going up, changing pace, going down. So that's why he's at the moment on his own. Where they come into their own is later on in the rides, when riders are getting tired and they can grab a wheel of a bot and it can just help them out a little bit. And there you can see Brill, and again you can clearly see the 10% gradient here now, or 9.9, 10%. You can clearly see it in this shot in the side-on views. So and you can see it easing off. So the software renders the climbs absolutely brilliantly, in my opinion. And look at the software, look at the shadows. I mean, you got the buildings in the background. It's beautiful. This is the new skin. This is the I think they call it Spring in Europe skin from RGT, released about 2 weeks ago, and absolutely brilliant because you get the cobbles, which is riding on now. You get the broken tarmac. You get the rain. I mean, there you can see the cobbles, or paves, as you would call them. Really beautiful. So the lead at the front, let's go back to the front, and you've got Lee, and his wattage has now dropped to something sensible. But having said that, he is going downhill. So he's out front at the moment, but there's so much time in this sportive for things to change around. And what I'll do is when we get to about the halfway, maybe 2/3 part, I'll pick who I think is going to be first man home. That's what I did last week, and I got it totally wrong. So we'll see what. Having said that, if you watched yesterday's race, and I'm a bit more clued up when it comes to the races and the racing, because I've done so much of it myself, and even though it's virtual, it still mirrors real life racing. And we had one of my teammates, Steve Brearley, yesterday riding from Team 3R, who'd come over from Swift. I mean, he's a well-known rider on Swift, and was doing the ride yesterday. And I thought, yeah, he's going to be up there amongst the finishers. And then, of course, you had last week's winner, Maxime Turcot, from OTR, and he's a really, really strong rider, and he proved that last week. I didn't know anything about him until I looked into him after last week's event, and I sort of like got a bit of a profile on him, and saw that he's had some really good results. Well, he's a strong rider, so I expected him to be up there. And then Decker was riding. I think it's Jan Decker, the German. He was riding, and there were some other really good performances yesterday, but I actually picked 1, 2 and 3 in the correct order before the finish, and I was quite pleased with that because I picked Steve Brearley as the winner because I know he's got an absolutely phenomenal sprint on him, and I felt it would come down. If you look at the course profile now, you can clearly see that the last, shall we call it the last 10th of the course, is just about pan flat. There's a little bump in it, but it's just about pan flat. And I thought that if Turcot and Brearley were together towards the end of the ride, they would stay together, and then once they hit the flat, they wouldn't drop each other. They'd go into the finish, and it would be a sprint finish. And that's the way it turned out. Although in truth, Steve didn't really have to do a fantastic sprint, because after 90 kilometers, You know, he had enough sufficient power in his legs to take the win fairly easily. When I say fairly easily, don't take anything away from Maxime Turcot. You know, he finished first last week. He finished second yesterday with an absolutely brilliant performance, and he's currently leading. Well, obviously he's first and second. He's leading the March Monuments series um, with 2 more races to go. So I'd expect him to take the series if he can put in performances like that. But back to the Sportive. The Sportive is an unofficial race. You've got riders who are going to be giving it everything on the climbs and trying to break free, like Stone appears to have done here. You've got Giles is 1.5 kilometres behind him, but that's nothing at this stage in the ride, and we saw that yesterday. We saw huge gaps being opened and closed. But because it's a Sportive, you may find that some of the riders just decide not to race it and just want to ride around. So let's have a look at what's happening in the comments. I'll have to pull my phone up, but we'll have a look and see what's being said in the comments. Yeah, somebody's saying mercilessly, but he's gone. Yeah, and here the rain is falling. So D Stone is the first man on the road. Now Lee, there could be a reason for his high figures. Maybe he was just using the first part of the ride, the first 20 kilometres, as like an interval session, and that's why we saw such high figures. I personally don't think so, but we'll see. I mean, that could have been what he was doing and why now he's no longer in the ride, because he did 20 kilometres at a phenomenal pace and decided that was enough for him. With Stone, it does look like he's a late joiner, which is why he's out front. But he's only doing he's not doing much of a pace, so I'm not sure what's going on with Stone, because and even Fleming is not showing very much distance. So are these late joiners? I think maybe, because this is the distance that you should be seeing. The course, like Giles has done almost 29 kilometres with another 59 to go. So, and that's basically, it's 87 kilometres, I think, the route in total. So this is about right. Well, it's not about right, it's spot on right. The guys in front of him, it does look like they've late joined, and that explains why they're in front of him, because it drops you at the front end of the race. But look at the wattages they're putting out. They're not matching Giles, so Giles is going to catch these two. Of that, there's no doubt. I mean, he's a kilometre behind now, but he will close that gap and take over the lead. And then the next rider behind Giles are these two, and they're not that. In fact, I'm saying these two. Is it 4? So if I swing round like this, let's see if we can see Giles. No, we can't at the moment. So these riders are, give or take, 950 metres behind Nick Giles out front. I think it's Nick. Being joined by this other rider as well. This is a good view, by the way. This is the overhead sort of like drone view that you can get in the software, and you can see the riders on the steep downhill and following them. Let's just swing it around a little bit more so that we're not losing so we can see through the trees. There we go. And so this is the first real group on the road, because in front of them you've got Giles, and then these are the chasers, and this will probably come all back together. So I imagine they will catch Giles and it will come back together. And once I've worked my way through those two, then you've got a further 2 riders but they're a good 2 kilometres behind. So that's a tough ask to ask them to close up. They're riding together, but it's tough to ask them to close up 2 kilometres. But we are on the downhill, so anything can happen. And then we've got Wellhouse. He's a further 1,300 metres behind the two in front of him. And he's putting in a really good effort here. And he's on the downhill and he's putting in 6 kilos. So he's really trying to close the gap. On the downhill, I'm not so sure that it isn't wasted energy, because he's going to struggle to close the gap on the downhill. Where he needs to put in an effort like that is once it starts to go back uphill again. And then you've got Tan, he's 86 metres behind Wellhouse, so every possibility of closing that. And of course, these two have got him in view and are going to close up to him. So they ride better as a threesome than what they will as individuals. And that's always a good tactic to use. Whoops, what did we miss there? And there's another rider, Galinato or Nato. He's pulling up to them as well. So those 4, it does look like those 4. Let's just go back to the ones in front. Look, the 3 have joined together. They're catching up with another guy in front. Who's the one in front of them? Wellhouse. So they'll catch Wellhouse, so that makes 4, and then Galinato's joining them, that makes 5. So they'll become a group of 5 riding together, which is much better than riding as 1 or 2 or even 3. If you've got 5 riders doing turns on the front and taking their fair share, then you're going to do a lot better than what you are riding as an individual. Okay, and then a further 2 kilometres back, you have Kimeni and Dishablis, and they're staying together at the moment. And then you've got Paul Torm, and he's with Wall, and Swartz is just coming up behind them. So you've got another 3 that are going to join together here. And they're just over 1 kilometre behind the guys in front of them. So that could come back together as well. And that could make another group of 5. It's all up in the air at this point, because the terrain is such that the determining factor is whether the riders want to put in an effort to close the gaps. If they do, then the gaps can come down. 1 kilometre can come down fairly quickly if you put in a big effort on a climb. But it's whether the riders want to ride like that, or whether they want to find a comfortable pace and stick to a comfortable pace. So Swartz, is, as you can see, is closing up on Torm and Wall, and they'll join together. And then you've got another group of 1, 2, 3 riders behind. Let's just zoom in a little bit and change the camera view. So there we go. So you've got these 3 riding well together. And we're getting towards the back end of the ride now. Forley is 55 meters behind them, and in fact, if I zoom out and just change the view slightly, let's wait till he gets around this corner. Yeah, as I say, you can probably see he's got the riders in his sights. You can clearly see all 4 of them on the road there. So there's no reason why he can't close up that gap. I mean, you can see he's already putting in more kilos than the guys in front, so he's going to close that gap, which is nice to see. And then Brill is last man on the road, apart from me, of course, and I need to get on the bike in a couple of minutes. But Brill is last man on the road, and he will stay last man on the road for a while, because he's a kilometre and 35 meters behind. Let's go back to the front and Fleming, because I'm just going to jump on the bike. In fact, I'm saying let's go back to the front. Let's go to me. So I have to hit the home key, and if you look at my power numbers, there it is coming in. And now all I have to do is wait. There's my cadence. And that's enough. That keeps me in the race. I won't get kicked out by the software now. I have to do that every 30 minutes in order to be part of the race. But having done it, then I can go back to the front and pick up commentary. Okay, we're gonna zoom back in and get a decent view now. So there's Fleming. You can see from the profile he's just, let's see if we can, there we go, we can catch him in that view. And that's that's even better. So Fleming has got a 100-meter gap, but you can see, if you look, you can see the rider behind him, which is Giles. So expect them two to come together at the front end. And then you've got, so there's Giles chasing. And then a good way further back, another 500 plus meters behind, you've got this chasing group. Now I'm going to shout out here and say that the two leaders aren't going to stay out on the front. This is not a big enough gap. And if these folks work together, although it looks like Aru is dropping off the back, but if these folks work together, then they can close that gap. It all depends whether they have the will to work together and pull back Giles. And once they pull back Giles, then they can all work together to pull back Fleming out the front. And he's putting in some good efforts here. So they're not hanging about. I mean, this is race pace. This is, 4 kilos. That's not hanging about. That's more or less the same kind of race pacing we had yesterday, with riders swapping over and swapping the leads. And you can see the transition here as he starts to go up the climb. You can clearly see in the software it's showing the slope. And again, a lot depends on what you do with the camera angle. I mean, I can change the camera angle to make it look even steeper, but this is showing it on sort of like a level basis, and you could clearly see, the uphill. So okay, I'm just going to catch up on all the comments because I'm missing them on screen when I'm flicking around with the camera. So what I tend to do is I tend to just get my phone, which obviously has them all on screen, and then I can flick through them and see if there's anything. Yeah, D Stone has dropped out because his power meter was only putting out 110 watts, which is obviously not going to get him to the finish. So Mr. Stone has dropped out. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that some riders may choose, and Stone may choose. What you can do is, as you saw me do, I missed the start and I was able to drop back into the ride. Because it's such a long ride, you can actually join this ride at almost any part of it, right up until I think the final 30 minutes. So you can drop out of this ride and come back in. I mean, obviously, your result, I'm not going to, if you were racing, your result wouldn't count in amongst the races. I've just noticed something. What's that flashing bar underneath his name? Can you see it? It's blue at the moment. It's green now, and it's blue. I've not noticed that before. Does that happen with every rider? There is red, and it mirrors his power output. That's what it's doing. Wow, I never noticed that before. He's putting up some serious watts, but I never noticed that before. Let's switch to another rider. And it's happening. Yeah. Okay, that must be a new feature that I've not noticed. Wow. Okay, I'll have to find out a little more about that. Because it looks like it's... Or is it? I don't know. I mean, he's in the green at the moment. Yeah. but Fleming's in the red, and it's yeah, I think it is. I think it mirrors your power output. Interesting. Okay, just something else to add to the commentary. And here's the chasing, and they have closed up the gap. A little bit. I mean, they're on the downhill slope now, so they're not going to close it too much. But if you look at the profile, you've got a bit of a spike coming up, so there's chances for them to close up there. Now, I'm not going to be able to stay with the race, the full-time commentary, so what I will do is I will leave it on screen. I'll probably leave this group on screen for you to watch while I step away, and then come back with a cup of coffee in my hand, and or I could even switch to the front end of the race for you and leave you with the front. Yeah, one of the riders, look, Nickerson, has just said that the next climb is sharp, and it is. So we'll stick with this group and see how they handle the climb, because you can see that now that they've all got to the bottom of the hill, more or less, these are just approaching the bottom, and the riders in front of them are obviously on the climb. They've closed the gap significantly. I mean, it's down to 200, and I'm just going to move forward so you can see. Look, they've just hit this climb. You can see that Giles and Fleming, and I said Giles would catch Fleming, and sure enough, he has. So that was a good call. But the rest of the group are going to catch these two as well. So it's going to come. The front end is going to come back together, and that's going to make about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 riders in a group at the front. Okay, and this, look, I mean, you see what I was saying about the software? This went up to 25% now. So this is a 25% spike, and there's another one later in the ride, because I didn't catch this one the first time. I mean, that's a wall. That's insane. That's just a wall. And of course, you've got the gap now having come down to 160 meters because of that, but it's now going to go back out. If you look at the figures, you can clearly see the gap is going to go back out because they've finished the climb and the chasers are still on it. But it will come back. It will end up coming back together. Of that, I'm pretty confident that the chasing group will catch these two. Now, I've noticed, if RGT techs are listening, I've noticed there's a couple of bugs in this software pack, and that's with the puddles. As I say, I'm running a high-end gaming PC, so it's not the PC that's at fault here with the graphics, but the puddles sometimes are recreated floating above the road surface. So maybe that's something they need to look at. But you have to say the graphics are stunning. I mean, it's a superb graphics pack. And the fact that it's magic roads, which means they can basically mirror, as they've done here, any course in the world. I mean, this is a true reflection of the real Tour of Flanders course. The last, is it 87 kilometres of the Tour of Flanders course? And it's a guy named Samir Dwortley, I think you pronounce it. Samir's Magic Roads, that's done these roads for James Ogilvy from OTR. So he's put them all together for him for this race series and done a fantastic job. And Samir is also doing my roads for the White Rose Classic, which is going to take place later in the year. That's going to be another sportive run over a weekend, or maybe even a couple of weekends. We'll see what the take-up is. And so you can recreate any road in the world, and then you add this graphics pack to it. And of course, this graphic pack really suits these routes because you do have cobbles, you do have the broken tarmac, You have the rural setting with the houses. So it really suits these courses that have been dropped in. Okay, let's have a look behind now, because the chasing group, Aru was broken free from the chasing group, so he's out front. But there they are. There's the chasers, and they're just, how many have we got there? You've got 4 of them there, and they're just 70 metres behind Aru and 680 metres behind the front. So I'd expect them to catch up with Aru and then catch up with the front end, probably by the time I come back from making a coffee, which is where I'm headed now. So hang on a sec. Am I going to leave you with the front end? I am. I think I'm going to leave you with the front end for 5 minutes while I go downstairs and make a coffee, and then I'll come back and resume commentary. So enjoy what's going on the screen. I'll leave you with it. Okay, I'm back. I got my cup of coffee and I've got a plate of stroopwafels. And if you don't know what stroopwafels are, they're a Dutch delicacy, caramel wafers in biscuit. Absolutely scrumptious. So the chomping that you're going to hear, I'm afraid, is me chomping on my stroopwafels. Now, what's been happening on the screen? Let's have a look. Fleming's putting in a bit of an effort. And he's got a 50-metre gap on Giles. So let's catch up with the action and see what's happening behind. There's Fleming. And he's pulling out a bit of a gap here. There's there's Giles chasing him. Who has managed to stay in the middle, but the chasers you can see behind are pulling him back. So let's just switch the view, and there you can see the chasers behind him. We've got 4 of them, so these folk could well come back together. I'm still a big believer that this is going to all come together. Certainly up until we get to maybe the second climb from the end. We'll have to wait and see, but oh, what's happened here? Oh no, that's Bales that you can see at the side of the road. He's a late, you can see from his distance done, he's a late joiner. Now, there isn't a problem with late joiners coming into a sportive ride, because it is basically a drop-in, drop-out ride, and they aren't really going to hopefully influence the event. Where I take point on this is when it happens in a race, and it did happen yesterday. But thankfully, the guys that were dropping in and out weren't affecting the racers. One guy who rode extremely strongly in the front group didn't actually finish the event. I'm glad to see he dropped back, and he didn't want to influence what was happening at the front end of the race. So yeah, you're going to get riders dropping in, and that's not an issue. You can clearly see that he's only done half a kilometre, whereas if you go to the rest of the riders, you can see that they're doing the full distance. And let's just go back up the front, and you've got Giles in second place and Fleming 160 metres ahead. So the lead's swapping and changing a little bit here. Now that yellow kite, that's the halfway point. So let's go back to see Giles going under it. There we go. So that marks the halfway point of the route. So halfway done in 1:16. Now yesterday during the race it was done in 1:10, 1:10. So a little bit of a difference there, and I expect today's broadcast to basically or not the broadcast, I expect the sportive ride to last for about 3 hours 15, give or take. But here they are back on the downhill. It's quite a steep downhill, so gaps are going to open up here, but they'll close up as they get onto the short hills to come. And then if you look at the profile, you have a reasonably steepish climb, followed by a much more gentler climb. or a bit of a plateau and then a gentle climb. So that's an opportunity for people to close up. But if riders get to the next climb and there's a big distance between them, they're not going to close it. There isn't enough time. That last climb, although steep, isn't long enough and steep enough to it's steep, but it's not long enough really to see big gaps being closed. So really the killer climb for me is the second from last, and that's where we'll know basically who's going to be up for first finisher, second finisher, etc., because that's where we'll determine the positions. You could just see Giles coming around the corner there, so I do think Giles is going to close the gap, and I think these two are going to come back together, and the following group may close up. So let's work his way back and have a look at what's happening. There's Giles, but you can see that Arrow has got Giles in his sights now as well. So sorry, it's not Arrow, is it? It's Bales, the rider that arrived late. So yeah, he's not going to. Yeah, this fellow is not going to be part of the. Here we go. You've got these two. And you've got two more riding together. Good tactics there from Nickerson to jump on the wheel as Galinato went past, because Galinato was obviously the stronger rider. So jump on his wheel and get a pull for a while. And then you've got Tuo. He's a good way behind. We've got two Galinatos on the ride. We've got an E Galinato who's up ahead, and then you've got B Galinato, this rider here. %, so they're struggling a bit here. And if I try to, there we go. That gives you a better view of the gradient. this is a tough climb. It gets even steeper towards the top, so yeah, it's a pretty tough climb. I think this is the one with another 25% in. So you'll have to forgive the moments of silence and the chomping. I'm eating my biscuits. Now we've had a few riders drop out, so Wall is the last rider on the road, apart from me, and I just didn't get on my bike in time. So I'm going to have to rejoin the event, which thankfully, as I said, it does allow you to do. Sorry about that, too busy with my coffee and biscuits. So we'll load it back up again, I'll get back in and we'll continue commentary. So 26, so I need to be back on 55. For the race yesterday, what I did was I had an alarm, and the alarm was set up to go every 25 minutes, which it did. So coverage yesterday was never interrupted. I'm a bit more lax today because I missed the start, and yeah, when I'm covering a sportive, if I'm taking part or if I'm not doing full 100% coverage, then it's a little bit more hit and miss, a little bit more relaxed. So my apologies, but we're going to be back in a couple of, well, not even a couple of minutes, less than a minute. We're going to be back in, and we'll get back to the action. Here we go. Now all I have to do is make sure that it's showing me riding, which it is. There I am. So you can see my power and cadence on screen, and you can see it's dropped me into the front end of the ride. So I'm no longer last man on the road, and let's find out who is. first man on the road. It's Fleming and there you go. You see, I did say that Fleming and Giles would come together, which they are doing. So they're going to ride together for a little while. I imagine they'll do that section, you know, the plateau and the shorter and the mild uphill together, and the downhill section, and then maybe one of them will go for a break on that really. And there's a horrendous 25% section on that. You can see on the screen the big U. There's another very, very steep section there, and it's a bit of a longer climb as well. In fact, I think it's the longest climb on the course. So yeah, that's an opportunity for them to split. Bales is the rider that joined late, and he's putting in a big effort here. My hope is that he rides away off the front and we don't see him again in terms of affecting the other two riders. I don't want them drafting on his wheel and it affecting the outcome of the Sportive. That would not be cool. And I'm just going to finish my coffee and biscuit. So let's check. Yeah, Giles is not quite there yet. And obviously Bales is going to be significantly stronger than Fleming, because if you look at the difference in distances that they've covered, although I don't understand why Fleming is not showing us having done the full distance yet. I don't think he was a late joiner. Now, sometimes, I mean, if you go to me and you look at the distance that I've covered, you sometimes if you get a dropout, even a one that doesn't really stop you on the road or stops you very momentarily, it can adjust your distances. It can reset them to zero, and even though you may well be riding the full event, but it could split up the distances into two individual rides. So you could have your first ride where you've done the first 50 kilometers and the second ride where you've done the second 50 kilometers. But you can generally tell the riders that are joining late by looking at the distance that they've covered. And you can see that these riders are doing the full distance. As are these riders. And Jan is currently the last rider on the road, because there's the front end. So he's the last rider on the road. You can't count me. So Volo is actually the last real rider on the road, with Claude just in front of him. Now, if you look at the bottom of the screen in the profile, you can see what appears to be a white sort of bubble, a white paddle, and that's basically me flicking through, and that shows you the current position of the camera. So you can see it's jumping from rider or groups of riders to rider as I flick through, and it gives you a good indication where people are on the ride. Now, this is that plateau I told you about where, to my mind, these riders really need to be putting in a big effort if they want to get back to the front of the ride, because this is the opportunity to do so. Once they get down that next downhill and on that big climb, I think any significant gaps are not going to get closed. So just looking at what's happening ahead, you've got Giles, he's 200 meters off the front with Fleming, so they could possibly come back together. These two really need to be putting in a big effort to close that 900 meters to Giles and Fleming. I mean, Bales is actually helping Fleming here open the gap, which, like I say, I'm not a big fan of this happening. I mean, it's not a race, so it's not a problem in this ride. But if this was a race, this would be a definite no-no. You know, a late rider coming in and pulling you along. And some may say it shouldn't happen at all, but so Giles really needs to close that gap up before they hit the steep section of the next climb. Otherwise, my feeling is that the gap will not get closed at all, because I don't think that last climb is sufficient. But anything can happen, and we've seen it. I mean, last week Turcotte went out front quite away from the finish, but prior to that, the positions were changing all the time, and we really couldn't pick a winner. And while this is not a race, you try telling that to Giles and Fleming at the front. They are most certainly going to be treating it as one. Now, we've passed, as I say, if we go back, we've passed the halfway stage now for, have we, for the majority of the riders? Let's just, let's go one up from me. Is this the last rider on? No, it's not, because obviously it dropped me back in. So let's just work his way back to the tail end of the route. Where Jan is just about at the halfway point now, give or take. So we'll just watch him going under the yellow banner as he takes the halfway point. But obviously, he's a bot. So if he was a real life person and you were looking at that, 137. So he's gone under the halfway banner at 137. The two right, gone the wrong way again. Claude looks to be going pretty slow, whether he's going to be calling it a day or not, because it looks like, yeah, it looks like he's possibly calling it a day. Okay, this is getting a bit difficult to call now because with riders stopping or dropping out. Okay, it looks like Paul Torm has got 41 kilometres to do, and he's the last man on the road. May decide to ride the full event, may decide to call it a day. If he decides to ride the full event, then you're probably looking at a 3 hours and 10-minute finish. Maybe a little bit before, but certainly 3 hours. So whereas if we go to the front end of the ride with these two, with 30 kilometers to go, they're gonna be finishing in about the 2 hours 25 mark, I would have thought. No, that doesn't make sense. No, 139, 230. Yeah, 239, 240 mark. Maybe. I can't remember what the front end of the race finished at yesterday. I need to look it up. So let's check out the chat, seeing as it's just appeared back on screen, and see what's been happening there while I've been away for a coffee. Not much, to be fair. So Giles is currently 490 metres behind, and the paddle is not updating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to the GUI and turn it off and then turn it back on. That quite often fixes it. So if you look at the bottom of the screen now, the profile has disappeared, and then if we put it back on, yeah, there we go, that's fixed it, look. So the paddle now shows the rider in focus. So there's the front end of the ride with Bales and Fleming. There's a rider that's late joined. He'll be on his way shortly. And there's Giles, and Giles is now, how far behind is he? 500 metres behind. So the front two, Bales and Fleming, are pegging it at 500 metres at the moment. Coming into this big steep climb. And from what I saw of the previous climbs, Fleming looks to be climbing stronger than Giles. So maybe I think this is his last chance to pull it back together. If he doesn't on this climb, then it's not going to happen. And we have our winner, which is going to be Fleming. You can discount Bales because he's a late joiner. So second group ride for me on RGT, says Nickerson. It's a bit more than a group ride. 90 kilometre sportive, I think is a little bit more than a group ride. a bit easy. Paul Tom saying it's easy. I agree with Nickerson, it's not easy. This course is a beast. Ah, and obviously the Chablis is complaining that there's no groups. Let's find out where he is on the road. We've got Aru and Moshta, Nickerson and Galinato. So, and then you've got Ralph and Anschutz. And Galinato brother. Stephen and Lester. So where is... Oh, the Chablis is right at the back. Yeah. Okay, I just spotted it. There's Wellhouse on the climb. Jimenez. And there's Chablis. But you're not last man on the road, sir. So keep it going. Let's see you finish. Yeah, it's hard work. It's flat. I'm trying to get fit. Oh dear. Yeah, come on, keep it going, sir. And you, Paul, keep it going. Let's see you finishing. So there's the bot, the last on the road, and obviously, good. I'm glad to see that Bales has gone off on his own, which is what I wanted to see. I don't want him pulling Fleming along. So let's see what the distance between Fleming and Giles is after they get over the top of this climb. So let's go back to Fleming and see. So Fleming has currently got a 200-meter gap over Giles, well, 190-meter gap over Giles. And my feeling is that this is Giles's last chance. And he's taking it by the look of it. He's pulling him back. If you look at the watt kilos, Fleming's putting out 3 at the moment, 3.4, and Giles is putting out 4. So Giles has realised he needs to dig deeper, and he's putting out significantly more watts than Fleming, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to almost double. Oh, what's happened to Fleming? He's pulled over to the side of the road. No, he's got going again. Now, was that a dropout? And could that be the reason why his mileage isn't showing the full route? I don't know. I'm only surmising. That could be a reason, but what that's done is it has allowed Giles to close up a little. And in fact, Giles is continuing to close up. He's got it to under 100 meters now. So this is his opportunity. I do, and I stick by what I'm saying here. I do feel that if Giles doesn't catch him on this section, the next climb isn't going to be sufficient for him to do so. So he has to catch him here, at least before they get to the downhill. He has to catch him at least before we get to the downhill, I think, to pull this back. But what's going to happen is Fleming is obviously going over the top first, and once he finishes this steep section, the gap will open very, very substantially and very quickly, because he's on the downslope and Giles is on the upslope. So we've really got to see the gap coming down here now very quickly, otherwise it's all going to be over in terms of first finisher. If I use the term winner, it means first finisher, because this is a sportive and not a race. But in all truth, it's an unofficial race. And that probably explains why Fleming is struggling, because he's saying his knee's hurting. Yeah, mine was last week when I did the sportive. I was in agony. And for 2 days afterwards, I really suffered after last week's efforts, but it was the longest ride I'd done since my comeback, so, and the hardest. So you can see that Giles has pulled it back. So well done. I said this was the section he needed to pull him back on. And now he's in with a shout. And as a ex-racer myself, Giles is doing what I think is possibly the right thing here. If he tries to go straight, tries to ride on and leave Fleming behind, that's demoralising. If a rider catches you and he puts in a gap quickly, I mean, he may well be suffering to do so, but you can see from his wattage, he's still putting out good wattage. If he can leave Fleming behind, then there's a very good chance that this could be it. But Fleming, I don't think it's all over between these two just yet. We'll have to see what happens, because there's plenty of time on this next section to join back together. And the gap isn't opening here, so it's pegged at 60 meters at the moment, so it's not really opening up. May well do so. I mean, forgive me for this, but I'm discounting the two riders. I'll just quickly flick to them so you know who I'm talking about. Bales, I'm discounting him really from the finish because he's coming to the party quite late. And so it's not fair to compare his results with the two guys that have ridden the full course. TLCH, he's only ridden 3.5 kilometers and we're coming very close to the end. So again, I'm not going to concentrate on them. This is where the action's happening. And while I was chatting, Giles has now opened the gap to 190 meters. So this could be the winning move. Certainly, if he's not caught by the time we get down the bottom of the downhill, he's not going to get caught. It's all over. And may well even be over before then, but never say never. I wouldn't count Fleming out just yet. But this has been a good ride from Giles. He's had to work really hard to. I mean, I have to say I didn't mention it, and I should have done. But Giles was my pick for the win, or the first finish. And it's easy to say that after the event, now that he's in the front. But he was my pick, and that's the honest truth. But he's worked really hard for this. I mean, he's been behind the majority of the ride in this second half and worked really hard to pull back at one point, which was quite a significant gap. And he's now opening up that gap, so, to Fleming behind him. And let's see what he's got, what kind of gap he's got going over the top of this next short hill. But if it's 500 meters, then that's possibly going to be enough on the downhill section. And he's still putting out much more wattage. On this sloping section, he's putting out much more wattage, more than double than Fleming, which we'll just flick to Fleming now, and you can see. And it could be that Fleming's knee is causing him so much pain that he's just decided to ease right off. I mean, he is on the downhill, yes, so he doesn't need to be putting out too much power. But having said that, Giles is putting out the power on the downhill, which means he's really going for the gap. He's really trying to open up a ride-winning gap. And as I say, if it gets to, let's go back to Giles. If it gets to 500 meters, which it's almost at now, another 25 meters, and it will be. If it gets to 500 meters and he goes over the crest of the next hill with that kind of gap, then he's not going to get caught. And you could clearly see that in the race yesterday. So, you know, there were two riders out front and a group chasing them pretty hard. And I called it once it got to, well, I called it before it got to this point, but once it got to the crest of this next downhill, it was all over. The two riders out front were never going to get caught. So we'll stay with this just until he does get over this crest, and then we'll get back and see what's happening further behind with the other riders. We've had a significant amount of riders drop out, which is a little bit sad, but expected. Not every rider is going to want to come on an event like this and do the full 90 kilometres. It's a big ask to ride 3 hours on a turbo. It is. It's a big ask. I mean, I used to do rides like this for fun, but that was, you know, that was a lifetime ago when I was really at the top of my game when it comes to endurance cycling. But for anybody not used to putting in huge distances, 90 or 100 kilometers on a turbo is a major effort, and 100 kilometer is a major milestone. Most endurance riders try to get the 100 kilometer, then get the 160 kilometer, the imperial 100 miles. So this is a good effort from Giles. He's putting in, you know, he's putting in a significant amount of work here. Just look at his wattage. But having said that, full credit to Fleming for keeping the distance manageable. I mean, he's managed to keep it. Well, it's just gone over the 500 now. So Giles has got this. He's not going to get caught now. Unless he has a mechanical. And in fact, you can see it's not actually, in fact, this is interesting. It's these two that are actually doing the main chasing now. They're not going to catch him. Trust me on that. But they've done well to get within sight of him. I mean, this is a really good effort by these two. And poor old Fleming is suffering because you can see since he reported his knee problem, his watt kilos has just gone really down. And in fact, look, he's possibly pulling over here, which is very sad. I come on, sir. I don't know what your first name is, but let's see you finish. It would be really sad if he doesn't finish because he's earned it now. We've just, yeah. But these two are doing the chasing, but you can see that already the gap's out to 800 meters, and it's going to grow because this downhill gets even steeper. And once he hits that really steep section, he's going to be motoring at such a speed that these two are never going to catch him. So, and he'll take some of the, it's only a very short transition along the bottom of the valley. So he'll take some of the speed into the climb, and it's not really long enough or steep enough to affect the outcome. But I'm really saddened anyway. Let's we'll come back to this. Let's look what's happening behind. I'm really sad to see Fleming suffering. Oh, sugar! What's? See, that's what happens when you don't have alarms and you're getting caught up in the commentary. You forget to get back on the bike. So it's going to have to load up again. This would be where I'd go away and have a cup of coffee, but I've already had my coffee and my biscuits, so we'll just get back in. You know, this weekend, I mean, yesterday's race, the coverage was perfect, but then everything started to go downhill because I decided, oh, I've got enough time between the end of the race yesterday and today's sportive. I said to myself, I've got enough time to make the changes I want to make in my pain cave in the attic. So there I am, I'm pulling plugs out, I'm changing over the camera and everything. And when I tried to put it all back together, the system didn't want to pick up the camera. I couldn't get, some parts of the software working and the hardware together. And I was really, really struggling. I missed the start of this event, which is something that I really wanted to ride. So, very annoyed with myself. I relaxed, took a bit of a break, and then I put the messages back on the forum that what had happened, telling people, yeah, okay, I couldn't join the event. Here we go. Just let me turn my there we go. So I'm turning my pedals over, so I'm back in the event. Let's get back to the action. So I'm back to the front of the race. There we go. Page down to get to Giles, who's still got his gap. Yeah, so everything started to go downhill after yesterday's race, and it's continuing today. I'm making a complete hash of this, for which, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm doing the best I can. And when things go wrong, it's pretty hard trying to stay motivated, because PCs are a bitch, complete nightmare when they start to go wrong. And you start to, you know, you plug your camera in and it just will not pick it up. Whatever you're doing, it won't pick it up. So you shut down all the software, you reinstall drivers, and it's a complete nightmare trying to, on the fly, trying to fix problems when you don't have sufficient time. You know, you've got a few days to sort of like work at it and do proper, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, to be able to look and find the problem. There is a word for it. I can't find it in my head, but to be able to do tests and find out exactly what the problem is, what's causing your issue. Because you've noticed there isn't a camera on now. I can't show you me sat at my desk because there's no camera, and I couldn't. There I am on the road. I couldn't find the camera. I'm getting away from Nick. Well done, Nick. Yeah. So it's a complete nightmare trying to fix problems on the fly when you've got sufficient time and patience. So I threw a bit of a wobbly when I couldn't get into the ride, and then calmed down and then put messages on the forums telling people what had happened, that I couldn't get in and that I would still cover the ride. But it's upsetting, especially the fact that I couldn't ride. So now I haven't done my long weekend ride. Tomorrow I'm covering the CTT 10 in the evening, so I probably won't get to ride until Tuesday when I do my own group ride, Team 3R group ride, which is a real bummer, because I need to be riding to keep my fitness at anything like reasonable. Anyway, enough about me and enough about I'm just trying to explain what the problems were, and I'm sure many of you have had difficulty getting into RGT. It hasn't happened to me very often, but it's happened to me, and it's really frustrating. So you know, I know how you feel, guys and girls, if you can't get in. So I said that Giles would walk away with it, but this guy, this German, has got other ideas. Will he catch Giles? Giles has got the 25% section to climb up with this fellow chasing him. So there's possibility of a catch here. You know, I mean, it just gets steeper as you go further up the climb, with a really nasty bend of 25%, which is going to hurt the legs. So I'm going to stay near the front and see what happens. I mean, who's been? Yeah, you've got Aru chasing Machster. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then you've got Gallinato and Nickerson behind, but these two are out of it. They're not going to close that gap on the front at this point. So really, this is where the race is happening, and I don't think Aru is going to close up either. So I think this is the race, and Giles has opened it up to 145 now. So I did say I think he wouldn't be caught, and I'll stick with that. I don't think he's going to get caught. I think he's going to be strong enough to. Having said that, look at the wattage that Machter's putting out. He's putting out more than Giles. That going red now as I speak. So he's really trying, is the lad. Full credit to him. Now he's just coming onto, you can see he's just coming onto the part where the slope eases slightly. So, but you can see that Giles has already done the climb now. He's already up the top of the climb. So the gap's going to open as he gets onto the plateau at the top. And then once he starts the downhill, it could still change though, because 200 meters isn't really enough on that flat section if a stronger rider's chasing you. So this is going to be an exciting finish, folks. It's not going to be a walk away for Giles. This is going to be an exciting finish, which is nice. Nice to end the event with a, and we are probably looking at about 2 hours 30, maybe a little bit more for the ride. I don't know. Yeah, it's putting out some good wattage to say. Look at that. And Giles isn't hanging about, so this is going to get quite exciting. He's already got it down to just over 100 meters. So they're going to possibly come together, which would really make it an exciting finish. Same as the race yesterday, we had a we had a sprint finish between the two that got away off the front, and the same could happen here. I didn't expect this, I have to say. I didn't expect. I mean, you've got this guy behind Aru who was with Machter riding together a further 500 meters off, and I thought that would be the gap. I thought at least a minimum of 500 meters for Giles would be enough. But then this fellow had other ideas. I mean, it's being pegged at the moment at about 120 meters, so we'll see. Can he close the gap? I'm a bit loath to go further down the field. I want to see what the other riders are doing, but this is really the exciting part of the ride for me at the moment. So I'm going to stick with this as he closes up even more. Look, I mean, 7.4 watts there. He's really putting in a strong effort here to catch Giles, and so I'm going to stay with him to see whether he does. And then if he does catch Giles and they decide to ride together for a little period, I'll switch back to the rest of the field. I'm not interested in the guys up front. Sorry, Bales and TLCH, but you've joined late, and so therefore I don't think it's fair to switch coverage to you two guys when the real race, for want of a better word, is happening behind you. I mean, I will show you possibly coming over the line, but this is where I want to devote my time. And in fact, I'm going to change the view now because Master's getting to the point where he's definitely got there. Oh, I was just about to say he's definitely got Giles in sight, and there you go on the screen. So there's the catch. Now he could do the same to Giles as Giles did to Fleming, and that's what he should try and do. He may decide to just sit with him, but what he should really try and do is ride away. Demoralize your opponent. You know, absolutely kill yourself, but ride away. But maybe Giles is just too strong. And Giles could well have said to himself, well, the guy's going to close on me. He's going to catch me. Why don't I just ease it back slightly? And then we'll ride together. And my pick is still Giles for the win. Despite the strength that Match has shown here, I still think Giles will take him in the sprint. Which is a big call because Max is looking much stronger. So for me to call out Giles as the winner is I'm probably on a loser, but I've got faith in him. And the sensible thing would be to ride together now. You know, if he hasn't gone racing past him and tried to get an advantage, and the downhill doesn't really lend itself to that anyway. He may decide to make a kick on this next bit of steep uphill. And when I say steep uphill, this next small spike has a 25% corner on it. So that can almost certainly decide this at this point. I don't think it will, because I don't think it's long enough, but it could do. All depends on what the guys have got left in the legs. Have they saved anything? A really good battle between these two. Okay, I'm going to stay with them until they crest this next. Here we go. So this is where I thought if he's going to attack, he would. And Mashta is doing so. He's making a... let's see if we can switch the camera around. There we go. That gives you a... In fact, let's switch it around that way. That's better. That gives you a better view. It's not exactly showing how steep it is now. For that, I need to find the right angle. But you can clearly see the gap now growing. I'm hoping Giles can hold the gap, but it's growing slightly here to 40 meters now. And yeah, it looks like Master is just too strong for him. If he can peg it at 40 meters, he might be able to hold on, but there's another rider that's joined late. Hope he doesn't get involved. You can see the slope increasingly getting steeper here. And like I say, there's one bend on this climb that goes to 25%. I mean, it's like a wall. Look at this now. So it changes gradient here, and have I got the wrong? Where is it? No, I might have got the wrong climb actually. Maybe that. No. Maybe this was the one with the 12% limit. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I was wrong about the 25%. It was the climb before. Anyway, he's away. He's got a 280-meter gap, and he's going to pull that out, obviously, on this sharp downhill. So he needs to maintain a decent gap when they get to the bottom of this steep climb. And he probably will have something like 500 meters, which may be enough to stay away. We'll see what Nick has got in his legs when it comes to putting out the power on this downhill. He really needs to be pushing it hard, and he is doing. So let's stay with it until they're both on the flat, and then we'll switch to the rest of the groups and see what's happening behind. But I just want to see what the gap's going to be when they both hit the bottom of this slope. Yeah, it's under 500, so there's a possibility of this being closed up now. Yeah, Nick's bringing it down now, and in fact should almost have him in sight. Let's see if we can switch round and see if we can get both riders on the road, can we? No, not yet. Not yet. Oh, I just saw Nick through the trees there. So, yeah, this is what's in it now. 200 and 300 meters. Okay, I'm gonna flick back through the field now, and leave these two for a little while. And then we'll come back, and the gap's at the moment 300 meters, give or take. So let's see. There's Giles, and he's 350 meters behind. We'll come back to you, Giles, and this is a late joiner, so I'm not really interested in what he's up to. Aru putting in a good effort towards the end of the ride. Here's Nickerson and Gallinato. They were riding together earlier and have stayed together, so that's a pretty good effort. This is that steep section. I mean, it looks insane. There's Gallinato, the other Gallinato, closing up. And I think Paul is now the last, and he's decided to ride with the bot Jan. So Paul's the last rider on the road at the moment. Let's just swing the camera around so that we can get a better look at him. There he is. Looking resplendent in the OTR kit. But they're a good way behind, 26 kilometres to go, whereas the leader, not Bales, Mashta, has got 10 kilometres to go. So there's a good 16-kilometre difference, which is going to mean I'm going to be, I'm going to cover all the riders coming in. So there's going to be a 16-kilometre difference. That's another 20, 30 minutes of coverage. So this guy will probably cover this 10 kilometres in about 20 minutes, so give or take. Well, it's flat, so maybe even quicker than that. So, and what's the gap? The gap is 430 meters. No, I think it's all over. I think this fellow has taken Giles. My pick. Never mind. It's a good ride. It was a good catch. I mean, both of them have looked really well and truly the two strongest riders. But to be fair to Master, he looks so much stronger now. He's earlier on when he was putting out that high wattage, I thought. And he's actually opening the gap up slightly. Even though Nick is putting in a really good effort to try and close the gap, he's not doing so. Now, the other problem with not setting alarms, let's see if we can find a better view because we keep getting obscured by the trees. I don't think I am, other than overhead maybe. Is the overhead view going to work for us? Here he is going into the rain. So of the original field of 30 plus riders, if you take out the late joiners, and hopefully some of them will finish, but if you take out the late joiners, we're going to have about 10 of the original 30, so a third of the field are going to actually finish the ride, which is quite a drop off and shows you just how hard I mean, look at Master here putting in the effort. But it shows you how hard the course is because, you know, a lot of these sportive riders, they're pretty strong riders. But this is a very tough profile. You don't need me to say that. You just have to look at it. And I'm very saddened that I couldn't ride it and I will ride it. I'll probably grab it and ride it later. But later being much later. But it's a tough course. Up and downs with sharp inclines like this can hurt a lot more than a steady climb does. On a steady climb, you just get into a nice rhythm and away you go. Well, at least that's my approach. With ups and downs like this, it's pretty tough on the old legs. And as I say, the problem for me is I can't remember without setting my alarms. I can't remember when I last was on the bike and when not. And I really don't want to be kicked out again. So I'm going to jump back on the bike very shortly, purely and simply because I can't remember. I mean, it's probably well within the half-hour period. But if I jump on now, 16:21, I then know that I'm going to get very close to the finish for a lot of the riders. So I'm just going to switch to me, turn the pedals a couple of times so that I stay in the race. There we go. There we go. And then I can get back to the action. Okay, so we've got 500 meters. So as I say, you're not going to see this gap close now. So we'll work his way back down the field. 6.9 kilometers for the leader to go and 7.4 for Giles. This is one of the late joiners. 8.2 for Aru to go, and then 9.4 for Galinato and Nickerson. they've done well. They've stayed together for a good portion of this ride, which is clever riding. Well done. And you've got the other Gallinator. If the graphic's correct, he's just coming to the top of the last major climb. And obviously, Doc Stefan, you've got just finishing off as well the climb. I think the graphic is working, yeah, because it's showing people on the slope. This is Well House. So he's still got to finish off the climb, and you can just see Dishablis in the background coming up the climb. We'll just switch to him there. So these two are sort of like halfway up the, well, 2/3 of the way up the climb. They've done the steepest part, I think. And then you've got Kimini. It's a bit lower down the slope, but still on it. And then these two are the last two on the road. So Paul's got 22 kilometers to do. So I will wait for him to finish. I'll cover him coming into the finish if he decides to ride the full 22, which I certainly hope he does. So let's go work his way back up the field by means of the riders we've just spotted and see what's happening again at the front. Now Aru's 1.5 kilometers off the front, so as I say, completely out of it. Giles is now 700 meters off the front, so I don't even need to say it. The Machta is the first man home, or is going to be the first man home, unless he has a major problem, mechanical or whatever. And he's still, find it hard to believe because he doesn't need to work this hard, but he's still putting in a really good effort to ensure that he's not caught. So when people say, oh, sportives are not racers, try telling this fellow putting in this kind of effort after having cycled 82 kilometers. You know, he's working as hard now. Look, 5 watt kilos. So he's working as hard now as what you would on any other part of the ride at the end when he's no need to, really. So tell him it's not a race. Good to see. Good effort. Let's just have a look at the two boys up in front of him. So, I mean, Bales has done a good ride. He's been putting out some good wattage. But then when you compare, you know, Machta has done 82 kilometers and Bales has done half that distance. So that's a huge, I mean, both in terms of time on the bike and in terms of effort, that's a huge difference. So yeah, you can understand why he's pulled away and gone out the front. And then obviously it takes me to the back. So one of the riders, I think it was it LTCH, was at the front with Bales. He's obviously dropped out, so he probably just came along for a short ride and left this fellow out on the front on his own. And there's now nearly a kilometre, well, 800 metres between first and second riders on the road in terms of finishing the event. So the full event. So we're getting close to the finish. This has been a good ride. and it's a quick run into the finish. Just one more slight rise, which is approaching now, and then we're done. And when I say rise, I mean we're only talking 1%, 0.9 as it's showing on screen. So it's not much of a rise. You know, a big ring over the top of it, and you're not even going to notice it, even with 84 kilometres in your legs. It's funny that I've never noticed before that that coloured line under the rider's name that you can see changing now as he's riding along. And I wonder if that's down to his own FTP or whether it's down to a certain number for each rider, whether, you know, it's just you go over a certain wattage and the colours change, or whether it's linked into your own figures so that for each rider it would be different. I'm going to investigate and find out about that, because it's interesting. You can clearly see on the screen how much effort a rider's putting in by using that, which is the purpose of it, no doubt. But I'm just surprised I've not noticed it before. I wonder how long that's been part of the software. And if you use that as a guide, as he's riding here, and watch it, you can see that he's really easing up here. You know, he's gone from green to a lightish blue to a purple, which means that he's really easing back. And there's no reason why he shouldn't. He's almost a kilometre in front of Giles now, so he can more or less, you know, ease ride up and just coasting home, or he can, you know, he can really push the pedals down. My guess is that when he gets past the 1 kilometre mark, that's exactly what he will do. He will start pushing out the power again. But for the time being, he's just easing right back. Whereas Giles is still trying. He's still pushing out 3.5 kilos and still trying, but he will know, without a shadow of a doubt, he will know that he's not going to close the gap with so little distance left on the road. So there's no point in him killing himself either. So it really is a two-man race, this. Well, it's not even a two-man race anymore, but it was a two-man race, and it's now come down to one man riding off the front. So there's the kite, there's the red kite, 1 kilometre to go. Let's spin the camera around so that we can actually get him coming. Oh, there we go. There we go. You can see the kite, sorry, not the kite, the blue finish banner. And we'll watch him going under it. Here we go. I'm trying to find a good view for you all as he approaches the line. That's a good view. There we go. That looks nice. 600 meters to go, and he's sitting up. 0.5 kilo. Yeah, he's just sitting up now. He's taking it nice, and I mean his legs will be hurting. There's no way you can ride this course and not really feel it. It's 1,000 meters of climbing. That's a pretty good day out, and he's done it in a good time as well. Right, we're going to get a 2:33, so that's a pretty fast time. So that's not hanging about. And that's only slightly slower than the guys did yesterday. So and they were racing it from the off. And then as soon as we get Mr. Matchster over the line, we'll switch to Nick Giles and watch him coming in. And then I'll do the same for the rest of the riders on the road. We'll watch them all coming in under the banner. I figure if you've had the grit and determination to finish the ride, it's the least we can do as commentators is get you finishing. So there we go. Yes, thank you. There's the wave. Now there we go. I thought we'd missed him. So there's Mr. Giles. And you can see the finish banner now. Warming in on it. So cracking rides here, cracking rides. I mean, I thought Giles had got it. I really did. I didn't think he would be caught. So really good ride from Matchster, but really good ride from Giles. And look, he's putting in, he's even putting in the sprint to finish. What a great ride. And what a great rider. Well done, sir. Okay, your next rider on the road is Yu-Gi-Oh! He's just coming to the banner, but this fellow has only done a short ride to finish off the end of the Flanders route. So we'll watch him coming in. Now Aru's not far behind him, and I definitely want to get Aru. So there's Aru going under the banner. And I'll just switch to this guy as he finishes, but I want to get Aru just going under the 1 kilometre to go because he's ridden the full distance. And this fellow is coming up. In fact, I might be able to switch this round and we might be able to see them both on the road. Can I? No, we can't now. Okay, so we'll get this. I'm surprised that they're not both in the shot because we had Aru going under the banner. He's 180 metres behind this fellow. So as soon as he gets to the line, I'll page down and then we'll pick up Aru. This is the last bend and then we're on the straight section for the last 400 metres. So let's just change the view slightly. Whoops, the daisy. Where are we? There we go. It's better. That's better. Yes, he was first, Nick. He definitely came in first because the other riders weren't part. Yeah. In fact, I'll message that out now. So let's just switch. Well done, Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's just switch to Aru to get him coming in. Okay, there we go. Well done, Aru. Strong ride. And then we got Gallinato coming in with another strong ride. He's left his partner behind. Only by a very short distance, but yeah, good ride, sir. Well done. So this is another rider coming home, the first of the Gallinato brothers, and then you've got Nickerson. Yeah, I called out Lee earlier on, guys. So yes, he was definitely something fishy that going on there. Now then, we've got a fair gap between Nickerson finishing and Gallinato, so I'm going to have time to send a few messages. And there's the other Gallinato with 7.5 kilometers to go. So just sending them a message now. There we go. And Master says it was his first ride, so for his first ride, he's finished first finisher. That's pretty impressive. And these riders, I imagine, let's just work his way back because it's far enough away from the finish here. Here you've got the next two riders on the road. Let's switch around the views. There we go. Wellhouse and Deschablis. Whoops, too much. They've got 9 kilometers still to do. There we go. And then you've got Paul Torm from Torm Cycle Clothing, who are the sponsors of this event. So he's got 15 kilometers to go, and he's effectively last man on the road. So I'll wait for him to come in, but do the maths yourself. We're looking at another 20 minutes then. So we're looking at about a 3-hour total broadcast. And given that I started late, I wasn't far wrong when I said that the full thing would be 3.5 hours. I was more or less spot on, because that's what it was going to be. So yeah, that's a long time to sit in this seat, which is pretty uncomfortable. One of the things I'm changing is I'm going to go for a proper gaming setup with a comfy seat and proper camera, and then I can do full commentary where you can actually see me in shot as we watch the action. And there you can see Jan the bot catching up with Tom. But let's work his way back further up the field. There's Wellhouse, and he's closing in on Kimani and Deschablis. So these two riders, there's not much in it. So they may well come together and ride to the finish on this flat section. There's no reason why they can't. Come on, Wellhouse, close the gap, mate. And then if he rides with these two, we can have 3 coming into the finish together. And then Mr. Stephen is a good 800 meters in front. So, and then Galinato obviously is my next rider home, but he's still got 5.6 to go, and it looks like he's suffering as well. So, yeah. Let's see if we can swing the camera around, get a bit. That's a better view. There we go. You can see the names on the road. And there you can see Doc Stephen, and there you can see on the road the distance between Wellhouse and Chablis, and yeah, it's gone out. It was 40 and now it's 50, so he might close up. Looks like he's putting in a bit of a dig here, but these two are working well together. They may well stay away. No, come on, you've only got 5 kilometers to go. Keep it going. Keep it going. Come on. Why are you stopping? Oh, this is sad when this happens. Come on. I hope it's not a technical problem for him. Let's go back to him and find out. He's obviously dropped out. That is so sad when that happens so close to the finish. Yeah, he's definitely out. So he's not showing in the... So I don't know whether it was a dropout or whether it was a conscious... I suspect it was not of his own making. To drop out 5 kilometers from the end just doesn't make sense. So our next rider to finish is going to be this fellow, Doc Stephen. Putting in a good effort to finish, but to not finish 5 kilometers from the end is really sad after, and he's done all the hard work. I mean, look at the profile. He's on the easy section and then something goes wrong, or he just goes wrong, just decides he's had enough. I don't know. Can only surmise. That's a bit sad. I like to see, riders that have made this much effort finishing, which is why that's why I stay with the broadcast, to be honest. I don't have to. I could just, I could close everything down after watching the first couple of riders come home. But on a ride like this, where it's particularly hard and particularly long, I just think if the riders are prepared to make the effort, then so should I be in commentating, to get everybody home. Oh, well. And on that note, I will mention, please, that, if you're watching the video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and consider subscribing, because I'm trying to grow the channel. And the more we grow this channel, which is dedicated more or less exclusively to RGT or e-cycling, the more we can grow it, the more we can promote RGT. So, it benefits all of us leisure cyclists, certainly. So please consider subscribing. Definitely hit the like button if you've enjoyed the coverage. And I'm covering the whole series. This is week number 2. We've got another 2 to go. So next weekend, I think it's Paris-Roubaix, which I'm really looking forward to. I've ridden the full course of Paris-Roubaix in real life. I got the gold standard for that way back in the 2000s. So I'm really looking forward to A, seeing the profiles, and B, seeing how the riders tackle it, because there's no really steep hills on it, but it's a tough old ride. So should be fast. Should be pretty fast when it's digitized, because obviously you're not going to get the cobbles, which is a shame, because it's the cobbles that make it the ride it is. But I'm looking forward to the digitized version, see what happens. And then the week after, I'm not sure what it will be. I should really have checked it out. I can't remember. But I am going to be covering, like this weekend again. Last weekend I covered Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The two sportives on the Friday and Sunday, and the race on the Saturday. I've done the same this weekend, albeit I wasn't able to get started in this sportive today. So I was a little bit late starting the coverage. But I'll be doing the same next weekend and the weekend after. And that's quite a big commitment, especially when you have a small family like I have. So show your support by supporting the channel, please. Let's see what's happening behind him. Okay, so these guys have got 4.3, 700 meters behind. And then who have we got behind them? We've got Wellhouse, 4.3, 4 point. So, yeah, pretty much everybody except Paul Torm. You're not letting the side down, Paul, but get a move on. Come on, I want to go for my tea. Yeah, pretty much everybody is within striking distance now of the finish. We've docked Stephen the next home, 3 kilometres to go. So we're heading for 3 o'clock finish. Sorry, not 3 o'clock, 3 hour finish. I don't see anybody closing up the gaps between these riders, so I think this is the order that you're seeing here on the road is the order that they're going to finish in. Doc Steve and then Shablis and Wellhouse and Kimani. Wellhouse calling it the longest race for him on, well, longest ride. It's officially not a race, Mr. Wellhouse, but I agree with you. It is a race. People treat them as races. So, yeah. Now this is just this is silly. Why is it doing this? Now this, I don't think this is a time. Oh, is it a time? Is it a time thing? Okay, let's see if we can get back in. Let's see if we can get back in. It might be a time thing. Maybe has it really been 30 minutes since I last jumped on the bike? It's crazy. I think they need to find a way of allowing you to commentate on the rides without without this having to jump on the bike every 30 minutes. It just seems a little bit silly. I don't mind it, but you can see, unless I'm actually setting alarms, then this can happen. You can get engrossed in the commentary and just forget that you've got to get back on the bike. Whereas taking that option off once you've joined would be, to my mind, the easiest option. But I suppose they have to find a way of getting rid of riders that just decide to come in and drop out. So I can understand it. I'm not overly complaining. I just think they could make it a little bit easier. Maybe they could have a commentator section on the ride. Or maybe they'll develop the software so that that's exactly what we get. I don't know. I'm not complaining because I love it. I love this being able to play around with the cameras and follow riders. I just think it's fantastic. Okay, here we go. So this should be the last time, and I should get back in just in time. Come on. Why aren't you moving? Okay. Because it's probably showing me at the end. That's probably why. What have we got on the road? So we're still going to catch Doc Stephen coming over the line, but he's been caught while I've been away. I mean, this is a fantastic catch. And they're going to go racing past him. Whoa, there we go. They're away. They're going. So I'm glad I got back in time because I'm going to catch these folks coming into the finish. I haven't missed anybody. So let's go page up and catch these two going under the kite together. Are they going to sprint it out between them, or is Kimani just going to ride away? No, he's not. They're probably going to have a little bit of a fun battle. So 1 kilometre kite. Ugh. And we're very much nearing the end now. 6 kilometres for Paul to do, so we're going to be slightly over the 3 hours that I expected, but I don't mind. I'm surprised they can't dock Stephen though. They must have put in a heck of an effort, because they went absolutely whizzing past him. You can only admire riders that are prepared to sort of like really push, after having cycled 86 kilometres. I'm absolutely dead. I don't have anything left. So I'm hoping that round about summertime I'll have got a decent level of fitness back. But we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, so who's your money on here? I reckon they're just going to go over the line together. I don't really going to sprint it out. Oh, I'm wrong. No, is he? Yeah, Deschables wants to finish first. Whoops, there he is. There he goes. Yes, nice one. Nicely done. And his colleague just behind him. And here comes Doc Stephen, who looks like he's on a Sunday stroll, which he is, of course. This is a Sunday stroll, so yeah, he's just enjoying himself. Happy to finish, no doubt. I certainly would be. And then you've got Wellhouse just a little bit behind. who looks to be putting in a bit, I mean, sending his numbers red. I'm going to stay with Doc Stephen, but Wellhouse looks to be putting in a bit of a dig to try and close up. So let's go to him now. There we go. There's Wellhouse. Slowed down now, but he was putting in the red numbers. So 500 metres left, mate. Good ride. Okay, and we got Paul Torm, last man home, which rather surprises me, but I think he's just out again for a Sunday stroll. So enjoying himself. And why not? I'd have been with him, to be honest, had I been able to get into the event and stay in the event in time. Really annoyed that I've missed this one, but never mind. Okay, it's penultimate man home. And now we've just got, oh, I can't count the bot. Where's, there he is. Now this is our sponsor, Torm Clothing, Torm Cycle Clothing, and his name's Paul. They're going to be throwing a couple of prizes at us for the most aggressive rider, best combative rider, the best team rider, or whatever. I don't know what the criteria is yet. We'll get to that later. But it's fantastic that they've come on board and offered a bit of sponsorship and the fact that they support the ride. So while he's still got 5 kilometers to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the view and take you to their website so you can have a quick look at the goodies that they've got on offer. So let's do that now as he's on the road. Let's see. Can I pull it up, and can we do that? Yes, I think we can. So we're gonna lose this view for just a minute or so while there we go. There's the website. Now it's torm.cc. That's the web address, and you can see they've got new stock coming in. So head on over here and have a look at the website. Why is it not interacting with me? Okay. Oh, of course, I've got to go into it and interact with it. Just bear with me, folks. Interact. There we go. Got you. Here we go. So this is basically the torm.cc website. You can see the banner, new stock coming in on the 31st of March. And it's just Paul and Al at Torm Cycle Clothing. But I'll tell you now, when you see the quality of these jerseys, it's absolutely fantastic. And they're made from merino wool. The fit is superb, but just the design as well. They really are well put together, nice jerseys. I've had Rafa merino wool jerseys, and these are better than the Rafa jerseys, so that says something. And they're nowhere near as expensive as the Rafa ones either. So head on over to this website, take a look at it, and support our sponsors who are supporting us. Okay, let's get back to the action. Here we go. One of the reasons why the ride today and my coverage and everything else was all basically gone to the dogs is because I'm working on modifying my setup and my pain cave and the whole shebang. And instead of waiting until this weekend was out of the way, covering it and then doing it afterwards, I decided to make a start after last night's race on Saturday. And I basically couldn't get half my kit working once I'd unplugged it and moved it around and tried to plug it back in. And one of the cameras I still can't get working. So that's the reason why today has been a bit of a shambles, for which I apologise. But in the very near future, we're going to have a much more polished look to the website, not to the website, to the stream, much more polished look and feel. There's going to be all sorts of stuff happening, proper transitions where I can transition from showing live coverage to actually discussing the tactics going on in this lot. And basically just a little bit more professional. I'm still in my early days of learning how to stream, and I'm still getting to grips with the software. Don't think I'm doing too bad with it now, but there's a huge room for improvement. And when you watch some of the other good broadcasters on RGT, I mean, like Jonathan Crane, who's got decent support, Mike Lister's getting good support. You can see that that there's a lot of room for improvement, not just for me, but for others as well, but particularly for me. So that's something for the future. It's something which I'm addressing even at this early point in my YouTube career. So it would be nice if you can show a bit of support. Hit the like button, subscribe, and just basically show your support for the channel. And I'll continue to cover the rides, cover the races, and I'll continue to support RGT, because that's the reason why I came over from Swift, from Team 3R over on Swift, of which I've been a member since its inception. And that's why I'm trying to grow Team 3R's presence on RGT, because I really want to see the platform succeed. I think it's a fantastic community that's growing here. And this from a man who leads rides over on Swift. The last couple of rides I led over on Swift, you're talking 500 riders. So I worked hard to build my community over there. And I'm working hard to try and build a community here on RGT, just the same. Although I think it's going to be a long time before I see 500 riders on one of our rides on RGT, but you never know. Anyway, we're now watching Paul coming on to the finish. Hopefully he will give me a wave. And it's been enjoyable covering this sportive, like it was yesterday with the race. I'm just so frustrated with all the hiccups I've had, and just today has been a bit of a nightmare, so forgive me for all the mess ups I've made. It can only get better. There's the Flamme Rouge coming up. So we're almost at the end of the transmission. And you'll have to wait until next Friday for the first sportive of the third week before we're back with OTR. But I've really enjoyed it. I think James over at OTR has done a fantastic job getting this series put together with the help of Samir Dwortley, the Samir Magic Roads guy. Paul from Torm Cycle Clothing as the sponsor. It's just a fantastic series, and we're halfway through now. 2 more weeks to go. So let's have a few more sign-ups as well. We really could do with, a few more people coming on board. I mean, doesn't the OTR kit look really, really nice? Let's just zoom in on him and I'll show you it. Yeah, look at that kit. That's fantastic. I love the colour scheme. You wouldn't have thought it would work, but the white and the almost black and then the green, you'd think, how's that going to work? But I just think it looks stunning. I really do. Pretty good. And of course, that's the bike I've chosen to ride on RGT, the Evo. I think it's a beautiful bike. Okay, can we get him coming to the finish? Are we going to see the finish? Yeah, there we go. Let's just spin the camera around. Get him coming in. So last rider home, 3 hours and 9 minutes. So that's been quite a broadcast. Thank you, Paul, for the wave. And you can join my group ride on Tuesday night if you like, or I'll see you next weekend. Okay. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.